If you want to make your content stand out and truly connect with your audience and sell your offers, you need to master the art of storytelling. But here's the thing, you don't need to become a master storyteller or learn complex frameworks to pull this off. You just need to learn the 4 simple storytelling principles I'll share with you in this video and adapt them to your existing content. If we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Marta and I grew my first business to 6 figures and a community of hundreds of thousands, all thanks to the power of storytelling and clear messaging. So let's dive in. Starting with principle number 1. Great marketers tell stories that people want to believe. Read that again because that's the foundation of all great storytelling. As Seth Godin explains in his book All Marketers Are Liars, marketing is about understanding the point of view of the people we seek to serve. And to give you an example of this, think about what would happen if you tried to convince a climate change denier that climate change exists. They'll instantly put up walls and dismiss any evidence you present, no matter how compelling. Why? Because it fundamentally conflicts with their worldview. And that's because anything that clashes with our worldview is a threat to our survival. And so the same mechanism goes on with storytelling. Telling a great story becomes possible only when you understand your audience's fears, desires, and most importantly, the stories they already tell themselves. One of the best ways to uncover what stories your audience actually wants to hear is to tap into their psychographics. And in order to do that, you need to be asking yourself questions like, what are their core beliefs and values? What is their lifestyle? And what are their deepest fears and insecurities? What experiences shaped who they are today? Your stories need to speak to that inner narrative, which represents the inner why behind every decision your audience makes. Once you've nailed down the why, it's time to move on to principle number 2, which is the next key piece you need to master in order to tell better stories in your business. In order to fully understand principle number 2, it's so important to back up and understand the basic structure that allows every great story to unfold. So you have a hero who faces a challenge and then goes on a journey full of obstacles. And he needs to defeat an evil enemy in order to get to the resolution of the story. But this resolution cannot be completed once the evil is defeated. In fact, the real resolution comes from an important lessons that the hero learns. Think about when you read your favorite book as a child. For example, I read every single one of Roald Dahl's books, but by far my favorite one was Matilda. Matilda is stuck with a family who just doesn't get her. All she wants is what every kid deserves, to go to school and learn like everyone else. But guess what happens when she finally gets to school? She meets Miss Trunchbull, who is even more awful than her parents at home. And at the end of the story, Matilda does indeed defeat Miss Trunchbull and technically gets to what she wanted, finally being able to learn in a safe and positive environment where she can thrive and be loved. But that's just a physical resolution of the story. The internal resolution is where the story really comes to an end. And that's when Matilda learns a very powerful lesson she hadn't anticipated. And that is that she has the power to stand up for herself, despite the abuse and the evil of the world she lives in. Without learning this important lesson, Matilda wouldn't have been able to defeat Miss Trunchbull, forgive her parents, and go live a happily ever after with Miss Honey. In storytelling, that's something called the aha moment. The aha moment is the turning point in your story where everything clicks. It's when your audience goes from okay, I'm following to, oh, now I get it. And so this is why principle number 2 is that every great story shifts a perspective. It's not just about entertaining your audience, it's about helping them see something in a completely different way. But here's the thing, in order to weave in these powerful aha moments in your stories, you need to be crystal clear about your message first. And your message is the core idea you want people to remember about your brand. It's how you communicate who you are and why matters in a way that connects with your audience. Your story, on the other hand, is just the tool that delivers your brand's message. Now, there is so much more nuance to crafting a brand's message, so I've decided to create a free messaging guide to help you uncover what your powerful brand's message is, and whoever is on my email list will get it first for free. So if you're interested, you can sign up using the link in the description box below. Now, let's move on to principle number 3, and pay close attention, because if you don't apply this, your story might not land as you wanted to. Read this piece of content. It's structured like a story, but tell me, is it compelling? Here's the story of how I grew my email list. I started with 0 subscribers in January. Then I created a lead magnet and I promoted it on social media. 3 months later, I had 1,000 subscribers. To help you reply to this question, I want you to think about the last piece of content that really stuck with you. Chances are it wasn't just another tip or strategy, it was a story that made you feel something. And this piece of content, well, it's technically structured like a story with a beginning, middle, and end. It contains specific details that should make it interesting, but it's completely empty and missing any emotional elements. There are no struggles, hopes, no human connection. Which takes me to the next principle of great storytelling. If there is no emotion, there is no story. Think about this. Facts inform, but emotions inspire action. When your audience can feel your story in their gut, when they can see themselves in your journey, that's when they truly connect with your message. So how do we build emotional connections with our stories? Here are 3 simple tips to get you started. Say you're sharing a personal story, then show the internal journey and not just the external one. So by this I mean, what were you thinking? What kept you up at night? What made you question everything? Another way is to include specific details that make the story feel real. And a simple way to understand this is to pretend you are painting a picture with your words. For example, instead of saying, I was so tired from working all day long, you could say something like, my head was pounding from staring at the screen for 6 hours straight and my coffee had gone cold. Another way to achieve an emotional connection with your audience is to let your vulnerability shine through, because imperfection and vulnerability are what makes story more relatable. And also, every great story has a conflict, and as humans we are naturally drawn to conflict because we seek resolution. For example, say you want to tell the story about launching your first digital offer. Even though the story has a happy ending, share the struggles you went through. For example, maybe you rewrote the sale page 15 times because you were convinced no one would buy from you. So sharing your vulnerable and human side is often the best way to tie your story into a lesson that resonates and feels authentic. And keep in mind, all these emotional elements in your story aren't just about making people feel something. They are an integral part of the most important principle of great storytelling. And that's principle number 4. And in order to understand this last principle of great storytelling, answer this question. Why do we get so emotionally invested in movies? Think about it. When the hero is about to give up and you're mentally screaming, don't stop now, you're not just watching their story, you're almost living it yourself, right? And that's because great stories aren't just about the characters on the screen or on the pages. They are about you. And this takes us to the last principle, which is your audience is always the hero of the story. And I think this concept is explained brilliantly by Donald Miller in Building a Story Brand. Most businesses make this mistake in their marketing. They position themselves as the hero of their story. But here's the thing, if you position yourself as the hero, you're actually competing with your audience for that role. Instead, you need to be the guide. And in fact, in every great story, the hero needs someone who's been there before, who understands their struggles and who can help them win. That's your role. You're not there to show off your amazing journey. You're there to help your audience write their own success story. Your story becomes their story. Your breakthroughs become a blueprint for their possibilities. And so when you're telling a story, always ask yourself these questions. Number 1, does this story actually fit within their worldview? Number 2, how will my aha moment create an aha moment for them? Number 3, is the story actually creating an emotional connection with my audience? And number 4, am I showing off, or is my audience the hero of my story? Knowing these principles is one thing. Applying them to your own life and content is a whole other story. And so in the next video, I'll show you how you can turn any mundane, seemingly boring moment of your life into unforgettable story-led content. If the video is already up, click here and I will see you there.